They said you weren't enough, not in words, but in how their eyes slid past you, like you were air pretending to be human. The room was gold and cold, filled with faces carved from glass. You stood before the gate, the one everyone whispered about, the one they said only the chosen entered. You weren't chosen. They didn't even let you knock. You remember the sound of the laughter echoing in the marble halls, the way it folded into silence when you turned away. That silence burned more than any insult could, because it wasn't rejection, it was erasure. They didn't just close the gate, they erased your existence from their memory as if you were a failed experiment in human will. You walked out of that place stripped of illusion. No applause, no purpose, just the sound of your own footsteps against the stone. The kind of sound that stays in your chest long after it fades. You had believed in merit, in fairness, in the idea that hard work opened doors. But that day, you learned the truth. They don't open doors for you. They build walls to watch you climb until you fall. That's the game. And the only sin in their world is believing you could belong. You felt something break, not a scream, not a tear, something deeper, a silence in the soul. The kind of silence that means the old you is gone. Every betrayal has a taste, and this one was metallic, like blood on a coin. It clung to your tongue, reminding you that loyalty is currency and you were broke. You remember one of them smiling as the doors shut. That smile wasn't arrogance, it was amusement. They weren't afraid of your failure. They were afraid of what you might become if you survived it. Outside, the night waited like a mirror. Rain on concrete, neon bleeding through puddles. You stood there drenched, humiliated, trembling, but not defeated. Somewhere inside the wreckage, something moved. Not hope, not rage, something older. The part of you that remembers hunger, survival, the ancestral code of predators forced into exile. You didn't know it then, but exile is a gift. Because only in exile do you learn to build your own kingdom from nothing but your scars. You thought of every face that looked down on you, every voice that said no, every hand that refused to reach back, and you smiled. It wasn't revenge, it was prophecy. The kind whispered across centuries by those who were told, "You can't," and answered with, "Watch me." The gate behind you wasn't a wall, it was a mirror showing you what you were never meant to become. Obedient, silent, ordinary. So you walked into the dark, barefoot and unarmed, but the ground seemed to shift beneath you, almost bowing. The air felt heavier, charged. It was as if the universe itself was waiting for what came next. Because when the world shuts its doors, it forgets one thing. Some people don't need to be invited. Some people learn to build empires in the shadows, and when the time comes, even the gatekeepers make space. They left you in the dark, and for a while you stayed there, half hoping they'd come back, half afraid they would. Silence became your only witness. The air around you grew colder, heavier, like the walls themselves were listening to your thoughts decay. You replayed their words again and again, until the sound of betrayal became a rhythm in your blood. Every name you once trusted began to rot in your mouth. They moved on, smiling in the daylight, pretending you never existed. And you, once so certain of your worth, found yourself questioning whether you ever belonged anywhere at all. That's how the world punishes those who care too much. It teaches them that caring is a weakness. You learn that the fall doesn't happen all at once. It starts with a silence that feels harmless, then grows into a void that swallows your purpose whole. You stopped answering calls. You stopped looking in mirrors. Even the clock seemed to mock you with its endless ticking, reminding you that time moves on, even when you don't. In the mirror, your eyes became unfamiliar. The same reflection, but hollowed out. The same heartbeat, but slower, colder. The kind of change no one notices until it's too late to return to who you were. You watched them, those who cast you aside, still thriving under the same lights you once stood beneath. The irony burned deeper than fire. They called it moving forward. You called it execution without blood. You realized the world never mourns the fallen, it simply edits them out of the picture. And in that erasure, something inside you began to sharpen. The pain that once crippled you started to twist into something colder, quieter, more deliberate. That was the moment you understood. Power doesn't rise from applause, it's born in isolation, forged in exile, tested in silence. You began to see the game for what it was. Every betrayal was a move, every loss a transaction. You weren't destroyed, you were traded out of comfort, and into clarity. And in that clarity, the pieces rearranged themselves. The very people who rejected you had unknowingly created a weapon they couldn't control. You started to study the silence, dissect it, use it. You noticed how power hides in stillness, how predators don't roar, they watch. You stopped reaching for the door that closed on you, because now you understood that door wasn't the end. It was the boundary between the world you thought you wanted and the one that would make you unstoppable. Nights stretched into years. Pain became ritual. You learned to wear it like armor, invisible but unbreakable. The loneliness that once haunted you now obeyed you. You carried it like a secret crown, knowing that no one could take it away again. And beneath that darkness, a quiet truth formed, terrifying and divine. They thought the fall would bury you, but they never realized what falls into the abyss learns to see in the dark. You stand in front of the mirror, not to fix yourself, but to confront the ghost that's been staring back for years. The air feels heavy, like the walls know what's coming. That reflection isn't just you, it's every betrayal, every humiliation, every night you swore you'd never break but still did. You see the exhaustion behind your eyes, the faint tremor in your jaw when you remember how easily they dismissed you. And in that stillness, a dangerous truth surfaces. They didn't destroy you, they revealed you. The mirror doesn't lie, it doesn't flatter, it doesn't care about the excuses you built to protect your pride. It shows the raw version, the one that begged, the one that bent, the one that smiled while bleeding. You stare until you can't look away, until you realize this is the battlefield no one warned you about. Not the world, not them, but this silent war inside your own reflection. You finally understand that the real enemy was never outside those gates. It was the weakness living behind your ribs. So you do something different this time. You stop looking for light. You let the darkness teach you. You trace every scar on your soul and memorize what it cost you to survive. The shaking hands that once begged for mercy now curl into fists, not for violence, but for control. Every tear you ever hid becomes fuel. Every rejection, a rite of passage. You start hearing the whisper of an ancient truth echoing through your veins. Those who master their pain, master their world. You no longer speak in apology. You speak in silence. You move with precision. You become deliberate. The things that used to shatter you now sharpen you. Discipline becomes your religion. Solitude becomes your sanctuary. You realize the mirror was never your enemy. It was your initiation. Every reflection was a lesson in how to stand alone without collapsing. Every failure was a symbol carved into your mind, reminding you that power is not given. It is claimed, brutally, quietly, relentlessly. And somewhere in that quiet defiance, something in you dies. The version that begged to be chosen. The one who waited to be understood. You bury it without ceremony, because now you see the game for what it is. They build walls to keep you out, not realizing you were never trying to enter. You were learning how to burn the blueprint. The mirror becomes your altar, your witness, your weapon. You lock eyes with the person staring back, and for the first time they don't look like a victim. They look like the storm that's coming. You walk away without breaking eye contact, because the reflection no longer holds you, it follows you. The old you lingers for a moment, reaching for air, fading into silence. And in that silence, the new you exhales for the first time, calm, dangerous, unrecognizable. The nights stretch longer now. The silence isn't peace, it's pressure. The kind that bends bones and tests resolve. You wake before the sun, not because you want to, but because something inside refuses to let you rest. The same people who once ignored you are probably still asleep, safe inside the illusion of comfort. But you're different now. You've seen what comfort does. It kills the hunger, it softens the edge. So you strip yourself of everything that made you soft. You burn the luxury of ease. You bleed discipline like religion. No applause, no validation, just the sound of your own breathing against the storm you chose to enter. Every repetition, every failure, every drop of sweat is a conversation with the darkness. You ask for strength, and it answers with pain. You ask for clarity, and it blinds you first. But that's the deal. The old version of you, the one who begged for approval, had to die here, under the weight of routine. Beneath the silence of mornings no one will remember. You understand now. Greatness is never given, only extracted, piece by brutal piece, from those willing to suffer longer than others. And you've become the extraction. The grind isn't punishment anymore. It's purification. Your body aches, your hands tremble, but your mind sharper, colder. The betrayal that once broke you has turned into something else, a furnace. It doesn't burn you now, it fuels you. You start seeing through people, through noise, through weakness. You speak less, observe more. You start to realize most people don't want peace. They want permission. They want to be told it's okay to quit. You remember when you wanted that too. Now you refuse it because you understand the most sacred truth of all: pain is the tax for power, and you've paid it in full. They won't see this version of you coming. The quiet one, the disciplined one, the one who bleeds strategy instead of emotion. You start moving differently, measured, precise, deliberate. You know now that the real war was never fought outside the walls of that secret society. It was always within you. You were the battlefield. The weak thoughts were your enemies. The fear of rejection was your weapon's dull edge. And now you've sharpened it against every sleepless night, every moment of isolation, every scar carved by your own will. There's an ancient rhythm in this suffering. The monks knew it. The warriors lived by it. The kings hid it behind their crowns. Transformation is not magic, it's math. Pain multiplied by consistency equals power, and you unknowingly have solved it. You don't chase their acceptance anymore. You crave only one thing: control over your body, over your mind, over your reaction. Because control is the purest form of dominance. It's what separates the predator from the prey, the silent from the desperate. You train in shadows now, not to prove them wrong, but to remind yourself that every scar is sacred. Every scar means you stayed. Every scar means you were chosen by the fire and survived it. They never saw it coming. The quiet one, the discarded one, the one who watched while everyone else spoke too loudly, burned too quickly, and vanished too soon. They thought silence meant surrender. They mistook stillness for weakness. But silence is where storms are born. And stillness is what steel feels before it strikes. You stopped begging the world to see your worth the moment you realized that fire doesn't ask permission to burn. It simply consumes. You didn't heal to return to who you were. You became something unrecognizable, something forged in rejection, polished by betrayal, sharpened by every night you swallowed your rage and turned it into fuel. They thought your story ended when they erased your name from their walls. But names carved in pain don't fade, they deepen. You learned the sacred art of invisibility. You built your empire in the dark, brick by brick, ritual by ritual, while they worshipped attention like fools dancing around their own vanity. You disappeared so completely that your absence began to haunt them. That's what power really is, not noise, not crowns, but presence so commanding it terrifies without speaking. You don't chase recognition anymore. You embody inevitability. You don't demand entry. You become the storm outside the gate. Every scar became an insignia. Every failure a sigil of command. You move differently now, measured, deliberate, dangerous. You speak less because every word now carries weight. The same people who laughed at your silence now mimic your restraint, hoping to taste an ounce of what you became. They watch from the distance they created, realizing too late that exile was your initiation. What they meant to destroy only tempered you. Pain became your language. Solitude became your counsel. Discipline became your weapon. You didn't rise above them. You vanished beneath their understanding. Now they whisper your name again, not in mockery, but in uncertainty, because they can't tell if you're coming for them, or if you've already been here, rewriting the laws they once used against you. You've turned their gate into your altar. The fire they feared has found a rhythm. Controlled, precise, unstoppable. They mistake it for calm, but it's the calm of someone who's already won. You don't fight for revenge. Revenge is beneath your evolution. You move with purpose now, like a prophecy fulfilling itself. You're not proving them wrong anymore. You're proving yourself inevitable. They thought they were gatekeeper, but gates mean nothing to fire. You burned through every barrier they built, not out of hatred, but because creation demands destruction. You are both now, the flame and the forge. The one they doubted and the one they can't stop thinking about. You were never meant to belong to their world. You were meant to build your own. Out of ashes, out of silence, out of every no that tried to define you. They'll tell stories about what you became, but they'll never understand it. Because they never understood that when they buried you, they planted the wrong thing. They never saw you coming back. They thought the silence meant surrender, that distance meant defeat. But silence was your strategy. You disappeared from their world so you could build your own. While they played politics and whispered names like weapons, you were learning how to move without sound, how to strike without warning. They forgot the truth that old empires always forget: the exile learns faster than the king. You walked through exile like fire through dry grass, burning away everything weak, sentimental, unnecessary. The pain that once buried you became the blueprint. Every scar turned into a signature, every loss a calculation, and by the time they remembered your name, you had already outgrown the throne they tried to keep from you. You hear about them again. A message arrives not from loyalty, but from fear. The same secret society that swore no one could enter now sends an invitation. They say your name differently this time, carefully, like it's made of glass and thunder. They've studied you in silence, trying to understand how the one they cast out became the one they now seek. They'll say it's respect, but you know better. It's survival. Power always crawls back to the hand that no longer needs it, and you, once the outsider, have become the gravity they orbit around. When you enter the hall again, it's not to belong, it's to observe. The same marble, the same walls, the same faces that once looked through you, now can't hold your gaze. They don't know how to stand before someone who has mastered suffering. Your presence unsettles them, because it carries no anger, no desperation, only stillness. You've learned the art of becoming unreadable. That's what unnerves them the most. You're not here to speak. You're here to remind them what silence sounds like when it holds power. You notice how they watch every move, searching for weakness that no longer exists. You give them nothing. You don't raise your voice. You don't justify your return. You let your results speak in the only language they understand: proof. You are not the storm anymore. You are the calm that precedes it, the kind that makes people whisper prophecy. Somewhere in their eyes, you see the flicker of recognition, the dawning fear that they created their replacement. You realize the irony. The gate they once guarded so fiercely now opens only because you stopped trying to enter. The invitation came too late. You've seen behind the curtain, learned the secret they were never meant to share, that every closed circle collapses under the weight of its own arrogance. You built something greater in the shadows, a system that answers only to discipline and vision. Their approval is obsolete now. You don't need to be accepted when you've become the standard. You stand in their lightless hall, and the silence feels different this time. It bends toward you. The same silence that once drowned you now crowns you, and though they try to welcome you back, you already know this was never a return. This was a reckoning. You don't wear a crown. You carry it beneath your skin. The world doesn't see it, because they never looked beyond the ashes they left you in. You've become what silence creates when pain hardens into purpose. Once, you begged for their approval. Now their names taste like dust. You've stopped seeking light because you learned to glow in the dark. The quiet became your throne. The wounds became your armor. And what they once called weakness now moves through your veins like fire under glass, contained, invisible, unstoppable. They used to whisper that you didn't belong, that you'd never be one of them. They were right. You weren't built to belong. You were built to become. Their world runs on noise, validation, and fear of being unseen. Yours runs on something colder: precision, solitude, the kind of strength that doesn't announce itself, yet rearranges the air when it walks into a room. You don't need to prove anything anymore. They'll sense it, the way wolves sense a storm before it hits. They'll lower their voices, step aside, not out of respect but out of instinct, because they'll feel it, your power, sharpened by silence, shaped by pain, perfected by exile. Power was never what they thought it was. It isn't luxury. It isn't control. It's not in the rooms they protect or the thrones they polish. Power is endurance without applause. It's the ability to stand still while the world burns around you and say, I have already survived worse. You learn that vengeance is too small a prize for someone who built empires from rejection. You don't crave revenge. You are the proof. Your existence is the retaliation. Every breath you take in peace is a declaration that their cruelty failed. Now you understand the secret they hide behind their rituals and locked doors. They fear those who no longer need entry. They thrive on exclusion, but they crumble when indifference meets their hierarchy. You've become what they can't categorize, a phantom of focus, a mind that can't be manipulated, a force that obeys no one's timing. You don't fight for a seat at their table because you built your own in the shadows, carved from everything they threw away. And now they look toward you, quietly realizing that the very person they ignored has become the echo that defines them. You move differently now. Every gesture measured, every word chosen like a blade's edge. You've outgrown noise, outgrown validation, outgrown needing to be seen. You've turned absence into dominance, rejection into reverence. The ones who once towered above you are trapped in their performance, still chasing what you buried long ago, the need to be noticed. And while they exhaust themselves proving, you remain still, untouchable, sovereign. They said no one could enter. And yet here you are, not inside their walls, but far beyond them. They were guarding a gate that no longer mattered. Because while they built kingdoms out of secrets, you became the secret itself. Quiet, unreachable, eternal.